This Sunday, March 26th at 7:30 p.m. at the Winnipeg Art Gallery, the Winnipeg Chamber Music Society will be presenting their fourth concert of the 2022-2023 season. This concert will feature music of Miklos Rocha, his Sonata for Two Violins, Dvorak's Piano Quartet, Opus 87, and Brahms' passionate and lyrical second cello sonata in F. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk about this Sunday's concert, I am joined by the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra's principal cellist and member of the Winnipeg Chamber Music Society, Yuri Hooker. Hey, Yuri, it's great to have you back here in studio.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
So it looks like 2023 is going to be the year of Brahms for you. You're doing the second cello sonata this weekend. The German Requiem is coming up soon. Yep. And in November, you're going to be performing Brahms' double concerto with Gwen Hobig. The 2023-24 season was recently announced for the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. Are you looking forward to that performance, and are there any other concerts in the season that you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to that performance. It's a piece I've never played before, and it's a piece I've always wanted to sink my teeth into. So I feel really honored and just delighted that I'll have an opportunity to play it with Gwen. The symphony. And I mean, there are lots of highlights next year. I think it's a really varied offering that we have for our program next year. I believe actually the conductor for the program with the Brahms is somebody that he grew up with in Calgary as well. So we've known each other for a very long time, although we haven't seen each other for many years. Daniel Poyser. But let's see. I mean, there's so much. There's Appalachian Spring next year. That's always one of my favorites.
Great.
There's the Nielsen Symphony as well, which we haven't done for a long time. So I'm really looking forward to some of that repertoire.
Which Nielsen Symphony?
Number 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
The Four Temperaments. Yeah. It's a great one. So the Brahms double concerto and the sonata that you're going to be playing on Sunday, sort of. They have a connection. The cellist Robert Hausmann, Brahms wrote both pieces for that cellist. Can you talk a little bit about the history of the Brahms sonata and that you'll be performing on Sunday?
Well, I know he wrote the sonata when he was in a really at a very happy moment. It was a summer kind of summer holiday for him. He was living out in the Alps and living and spending a lot of time with some friends close by. And writing some incredible music, and I think that beauty, that just gushing kind of warmth is really present in this piece. Yeah,
I was doing some reading about Hausmann, and by all accounts, from what I gather, he had a really big and large sound. Do you think it's one of the reasons why the first and the third movement, for that matter, have this sort of stormy dichotomy between the piano and the cello?
It's hard to say. I mean, I don't. I don't doubt that he had a big sound. I know that Brahms had a funny relationship with the cello. In that he didn't think that the cello could really handle a concerto, for instance, until he heard the Dvorak cello concerto, and then he kind of regretted not having written a concerto for the cello. And he kind of he thought it was kind of like a moaning cow a little bit. So I don't know if that I don't remember exactly when he said that, and so how that reflects his experience with certain cellists in his life. But it's true that the cello technique has developed a lot especially over the last 100 years, and it's interesting, though. One of the discoveries that I had as I was preparing for this Sunday's concert is realizing that in the score there is only one fortissimo in the whole piece, just one, and that's in the third movement, just one. And everything else, there's a lot of fortes, but he never really marks anything just massive, and which is odd because you think of this piece as just this huge epic work for the cello, and you'd think and you definitely have to play loud, but so in his conception of it, it seems like he thinks that it's in a more lyrical vein than kind of powerful.
Mm-hmm. And how many times have you performed the second sonata, and what do you love about it?
I think I've played it, if I remember correctly, about twice. I've performed it. I just love its lyricism. I love how, yeah, like I said before, the warmth of it. In particular in the second and the fourth movements, of course, we get a lot of that.
Right.
I love also another thing that I was really kind of enjoying in it is the kind of the rhythmic manipulation and the metrical manipulation that he does with it, where at the beginning it's really actually quite hard to tell what the meter is.
Right.
And you've got all these subdivisions in the piano, like sextuplets, but the cello is doing these funny hemiolas where it sounds like sometimes he's playing the basic beat as a dotted quarter note, and other times it sounds like a half note, and it's really hard to tell where the downbeat is a lot of the time. And that goes throughout the whole movement. It's especially in the development section, you really have to be willing to go with that kind of fluidity of meter and rhythm. Whereas I love that about that.
It's so much the case with Brahms's chamber music.
Absolutely.
And whenever I think of both of the sonatas, for me, when it comes to the cello sonatas, I always think of that beautiful low end of the cello that he really makes the most out of in both of the sonatas.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, the first sonata, he starts in that really low register, but definitely in this piece as well, he really makes a lot of use of that richness of the C string as well. And I'm actually doing some things that I don't really need to play on the C string. I'm going way up high on the C string to kind of make use of that as well, and just really go for that depth and richness too.
The second big piece that you're going to be part of on Sunday night is the Dvorak Piano Quartet. It was written 3 years after the Brahms Sonata. It was written in 1889 for the publisher Fritz and Rock, who was a publisher that Brahms introduced Dvorak to. How would you describe the writing for cello in the piano quartet from Dvorak?
It's very special as well, and Dvorak was very generous to the cello, of course, with of course the famous concerto. It's probably our biggest concerto, and in the symphonies as well. He gave us a lot of great material. In this particular piece, we have there's a big solo for the cello at the beginning of the second movement. So it's quite high on the instrument, but it's actually one of the best registers for the cello. Just kind of sort of mid range on the A string, and which kind of compensates for the fact that it's in a really nasty key, 6 flats, and which can sound a little bit. If it was lower, it would sound a little woolly, probably. But given that it's in a really good range on the register on the instrument, it actually sings out very, very well. And yeah, there's lots for the cello to do in this piano quartet. I mean, for everybody really. It's just a tour de force for all the players, for sure.
And in particular, he puts a lot of importance on the viola in this one, right?
Absolutely.
The viola presents subject material. Can you talk about that a bit, and why the viola has such an importance?
Why? Well, I mean, Dvorak himself was a violist, of course, and so I would imagine that he has had a little bit of a soft spot and wanted to give the violist lots to do. But yeah, I mean, and of course, it just has the viola gives so much richness to chamber music texture, and that I would say there's a roundness, a warmth in this piece for sure, and he definitely makes a lot of use of the viola.
And it's one of the other things I really love about the second piano quartet is the piano writing. It just seems much more assured and confident. For you, as the low end of the strings, does that help you? Like, does it help you to give a little bit of foundation to support you and something that you can dig into when you're playing this piece?
It's an interesting question. It's a funny kind of relationship in chamber music when you're playing chamber music as a cellist with the piano, because it's sometimes hard to know, especially with early chamber music like Haydn piano trios, for instance. The cello is really supporting the piano,
right?
And so to think of it as the piano supporting the cello is an interesting thought. Definitely, we work together very, very like the instruments in this piece work hand in glove. the cello kind of provides a richness maybe that the piano doesn't always have, but whereas the piano gives an incision to that low end of the cello that the cello doesn't always have. So Dvorak's writing for that pairing and for that collaboration is good. It's really well. I mean, it's genius, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things about Dvorak is how he very often draws on folk elements in his music. I'm thinking of the Slavonic dances.
Yeah.
For me, the Wind Serenade. There's a Czech Suite, etc. And we get that in the final movement of this piano quartet. If I recall, back in our days at Brandon University studying together, Dvorak is one of your favorite composers, right?
Yeah,
is this one of the things that you really love about his music?
For sure, yeah. I mean, there's a flavor in Dvorak's music that is different from Brahms. Of course, they were close just personally as well. They were friends. And had great respect for one another, but there's something in Dvorak's music, and partly it's the folk element, partly it's that he uses rhythm very differently and the rhythmic impulse very differently from Brahms. But yeah, I think definitely it's something that I appreciate about Dvorak, and I think he gets a little more, obviously in the Hungarian dances that Brahms wrote, he's tapping into a folk source. The folk source for Dvorak sometimes feels a little bit more like a literal transcription almost. Like where in this piece there's some parts of it that are sound like a cymbalum. Yeah. This kind of dulcimer, hammered dulcimer folk instrument it just gets much closer to the actual sound of a cymbalum, I would say, than Brahms does, for instance.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to wrap up the conversation by asking, the other piece on the program is Zarosha Sonata for two violins. Have you heard it?
I have not heard it, no.
So it'll be interesting to see how Gwen and Carl do it. Yeah, Rosha, he's a great composer.
He is, yeah. He was a wonder. He wrote some really fantastic movie scores, of course.
Yeah.
And was really one of the, I would say, not appreciated enough in the 20th century as a composer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Serious composer of music.
He's a fabulous composer. Wrote a great violin concerto, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
I think a double concerto too, violin and cello.
That's
too.
right. That's right. Yeah, he did, as well as a cello concerto.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yuri, the concert on Sunday with the Winnipeg Chamber Music Society sounds like it is going to be just excellent. Thanks for taking the time to stop by our Classic 107 studio and talk to me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
For our Classic 107 listeners, the concert is at 7:30 this Sunday night at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. For more details, go to classic107.com. I've written an article about the concert, and I have provided a direct link to the Winnipeg Chamber Music Society's website in the article where you can buy tickets and get more details for the concert. So go to classic107.com. Yuri, thanks again.
Thanks for having me.